Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to learn about mastering your hips. This is one of the areas where I struggle the most. Fixing my lower half is one of the biggest flaws in my distance game. So we're going to dive into it and hopefully make some corrections so we can all crush massive D off the tee. And if one thing is true, Shakira said it herself, the hips don't lie. Today's our third episode in our PVC pipe drill series. So if you didn't see the first two, I'll leave those in the link in the description. If we're going to break it down into its simplest form, what we need to do to master our hips is three things: master our timing, master our weight shift, and master our brace. That's much easier said than done. Now in this video, I'm not going to go into the extreme specifics on how to exactly do everything. We're definitely going to touch on some things, but if you want a complete, amazing breakdown, I'm going to leave a link in the description for Slingshot Disc Golf. After you watch this, go ahead and head over there. And in this video, we're going to build on one of the concepts that he talked about in his video that I feel is really important. And more importantly, I'm going to show you some exercises to really master that movement. When we watch these pros and they just destroy the disc off the tee and throw it incredible distances, they're using what we call in the coaching industry elite patterns. When I coach my high school and college athletes, I show them some elite movements that pro hitters do or pro pitchers do and hope that they can mimic those movements. The problem is what a lot of coaches like myself or us players do, especially when we're learning, we can't physically get those elite patterns down. And we can't get those patterns down for a couple of reasons. Number one, it could be a skill problem, but also it could be a strength and flexibility problem. So in this video, not only am I going to show you the concept that we're going to work on, but I'm going to show you some strength activities you can do and some mobility activities you can do to get yourself into these elite patterns so you can look like those pros and maximize your distance potential. Now, for some people, this will happen right away. And for other people, it will take a long period of time. Mastering engaging your hips will not only improve your distance, but it will also help you remain injury-free. When we master our hips, we're using most of our lower body in the throw, and that'll take a lot of pressure off your shoulder and elbow, which is where a lot of disc golf injuries happen. Also, when you master your hips, you're going to master your brace. And when you master your brace, that's going to take a lot of pressure off your knee, which is another area where a lot of injuries happen. So we're going to try to not only increase our distance, but also minimize injuries. And these exercises that I'm going to show you today will also help with that as well. Let's take a second to talk about arm speed. When we talk about distance and we see on coverage, we see them show velocities and talk about arm speed. A lot of people get confused and they hear arm speed and they think they have to throw their arm faster through the zone or muscle their arm up to get that velocity. And actually, when you muscle your arm up, you lose velocity. We want to keep this nice and smooth and relaxed to get it through the throwing motion as quickly as possible. And that's what mastering your hips does for you. It creates the movement in your hips and then generates that power from the bottom half of your body all the way up. And when we talk about any athletic movement, our lower half sets up our upper half. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. We need to learn to engage our hips and master our lower half to set our upper half up for success. So without further ado, enough of me talking, let's dive in. The concept we're going to work on today is the front foot glide. Here we see four guys gliding their front foot out as they step while keeping their weight on their back foot. This is very difficult for some people. Here we see Jennifer Allen a little bit slower, getting through her X step, and we see as she plants her back foot here, her front foot kind of looks like a gliding motion while keeping the weight on her back foot before she gets into her brace. I'm going to start with some drills here. We're going to start extremely basic here because a lot of people can't feel their weight transferring in their hips. We're just going to start with stepping so you can start feeling that weight transfer back and forth. Then we're going to slowly move into a rock. And here's where you can really feel that weight transfer deep into your hip like we do in a golf motion. And then we're going to move faster. And this is a good place to start feeling where the weight is in your feet. And that'll eventually help us master our brace. Now we're going to move into a hip turning drill. We're going to use our PVC pipe just to take our upper body out of the equation and work on really getting those hips turned and then moving into our brace. And again, just to really start feeling how our hips move. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a complicated one. We're going to work on our concept of gliding our front foot forward while keeping our weight on our back foot. I've got my foot and knee resting on this PVC pipe. You can actually see it bending. I'm really relaxing that leg. I'm just going to push it forward and keep the weight on my back leg, and more specifically the back hip. Hopefully we can look a little bit like Eagle McMahon here in this picture. As we slide out, we can kind of feel where it is in our hip and in our legs, and you could experiment with strong positions here, what feels comfortable and what feels strong. All right, now we're going to change the position of our PVC pipe and use it to balance, once again, helping us get that leg out while keeping the weight on our back leg and hip, and also work on our timing and brace here. When our foot lands, we should be at the peak of our reach back and then go directly forward. As far as our brace is concerned, we want something firm and perpendicular to our target. But as we're doing this reps, you should focus on one thing at a time. That's how real improvement happens. This is just a multifaceted drill. Once again, you can see me reaching back, and you can see how the weight is all the way on my back hip and back leg. I'm also doing some experimenting with how far I should glide my foot out. Everyone's going to take a different length of step and also different length of reach back as well. This is a good place for you to see where your balance is at and what your movement patterns are. You can also track your improvement as well. Of course, just like anything, we're going to do it both ways, so we can work on our strength and flexibility equally on both sides of our body. I know it seems awkward, but it does help a lot. In this drill, we're going to take the PVC pipe totally out of it and work on our glide. I know it looks like I'm shuffling, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm actually sinking my weight in my back hip and back leg and really pushing out and just working on my glide, keeping the weight on my back hip for as long as possible. Once you get comfortable, you can add some upper body movement, but just really feel the movement. Here I am also working on staggering my legs, because one of the big things people tell you to get some more hip engagement is stagger your legs out. So here's a way we can work on it and see how far we need to stagger our legs. Also, of course, doing it the other way will really help your sidearm out as well. Might feel uncomfortable, but that's what we need to do to improve. All right, back to the PVC pipe. We're going to put it behind our body and totally take our upper body out of the equation. This is great for feeling your hips at the end of it and really working on your brace too. You can see I'm still working on gliding my foot forward without putting any weight immediately down. One weakness a lot of people have, as soon as their foot goes down, they just slam all their weight on their front leg, and we don't want to do this. Now, as I get more comfortable, I stagger my feet out and work on turning my back all the way, just like a normal throw. One great tip about hip engagement is our hip engagement comes from turning our back knee and back shoulder. If you start thinking about getting that hip movement from the back, that will really help you keep the weight on your back leg. Also, when we talk about our brace, we don't want to have the weight on the ball of our feet. It's more towards the middle or back of our foot. Everybody's going to be a little different, but the ball of your ankle or your heel is a good place to aim for. And we can really feel that energy start transferring from the ground, that front brace, all the way up your body, into your arm and into your disc, so you can eject that disc at maximum velocity. All right, let's talk about strength and mobility. It's tough to only work out your hips because your hips are part of your core. So you get a little bit of both on these exercises. First, we're just going to start with our leg raises. Seen this before on my 5-minute workout. This is a great exercise for really focusing on those hips. And you'll probably notice one hip is stronger than the other. We're going to go for 20 reps on each side. Notice my hips are stacked right on top of each other. My feet are parallel and my spine is straight. Of course, doing it on both sides to make sure we're equally strong on both sides. If you get good at this, there are some strength bands that you can put either in your ankles or your hips, wherever you feel more comfortable, to add challenge to this activity. Once again, this is one of my favorite finishers. If you're someone who goes in the weight room and lifts big weights, this would be a good one to work in at the end of your routine when you're working some core strength as well. I typically do 1, maybe 2 sets of this. Then I move on to other exercises like the side plank here. This is a challenging core and hip one. Got 3 versions, an easy, an advanced, and a very advanced, depending on what you want to work on. But we're still going to keep our spine straight. Our weight is on the side of our foot and our elbow. And we want to make sure our arm and body are at 90 degrees. And once again, our spine is straight. You can experiment with this movement, but ultimately we want to hold on for 1 minute. Here's another version of a plank called a Copenhagen. We want to put our hand on our chest, and the weight is on our elbow and our back knee, and our front knee is going to be in the air at a 90-degree angle. We would also like to hold this for a minute, but you're going to have to build up. It's called a dragon plank. This is a good way to add some movement into your core and hip activities. We'd like to keep our hips parallel to the ground as well as our chest. I'm failing a little bit here. Once again, good tip to video yourself doing exercises to see if you're doing the right technique. And again, some people struggle with the movements just like myself. I'm not perfect, but I'm here to just show you some good activities. And once again, we're just going to push our hips off the ground. Here's an angle chop. Let me know in the comments if you want to see some more exercises from actual weight training and gym equipment. This is a great activity for your legs, core, and hip. And also, if you look back at the Eagle McMahon picture, we're making ourselves look a little bit like that. Basically, we're going to rotate our body in an athletic manner and get ourselves into that good rep. And of course, as always, we're going to work out both sides of our bodies so our body is strong equally on both sides. Can't emphasize that enough to make sure your body strength is equal on both sides. This is called a single leg deadlift. This is actually another exercise in the weight room. I'm doing it with just a PVC pipe, and you can do that as well, or you can do it with no weights at all. Big technique here. We want to make a T with our leg that's on the ground, our body and our back leg. I'm falling a little bit short there. We also want to keep our hips even. I got a little hip turn in mine. So again, it's very important to master the technique prior to adding weights. I'm just using a PVC pipe here and I'm getting a great workout on my hips. This is also great for training yourself how to balance and working on our brace for our disc golf throw. This will really teach your body where the weight should be when you are bracing. So it's a great exercise. It is challenging, so it's not for everybody. Here's some sidecars. Once again, a great one to work on our strength and mobility in our hips. We're also getting some core work. We want to keep the weight on our back foot and turn our hips and chest as far as we can while balancing. Then we're going to do some quadricep circles. This is another great finisher. You can also use this as a warm-up as well. Once again, 1 or 2 sets of 10 circles on each side. To help you get better at that and hip movement is doing quadricep circles with a brace. You notice I'm holding on to this weight rack so my body cannot cheat. This is a great one for people who are just learning some mobility exercises. Once again, 10 on each side. Keep making sure that spine is straight, ready to go. I'm not doing any leaning or anything like that. You'll probably notice one hip is more flexible than another. One hip is more strong than another. That's why it's really important to get both sides on there. You also notice that we haven't thrown any discs yet. The best way to create change is in a small picture without the result of that disc. Same thing with this stuff. Now we're going to move our hip circles to the wall. We want to make sure we have some great posture here. We're actually adding some resistance by putting our hand up against the wall. This is a greater challenge than holding on to the weight rack. And you'll also notice it's a much more challenging activity. This is really going to work on some flexibility in your hips and your lower back. So if someone's got a sore lower back, this will really help you out as well. Once again, going for 10 on each side. Trying to notice where you're feeling pain, if you're feeling pain, if flexibility is better on one side than another. Great mobility work. And as we get older, our mobility and our flexibility gets worse and worse and worse unless we work on it. I'm a little bit older, so some of these are difficult for me. These are called 90-90 switches. All we're doing is putting our legs at 90-degree angles. Notice I am not quite at 90 degrees, so my movement isn't quite perfect. And we're just going to switch them back and forth. We want to stay nice and tall. Notice I'm getting some movement. And also keep our body straight and sit up straight. This is also why it's important to film yourself when you exercise so you can notice some technical problems. Once again, 10 on each side. These are 90-90 hip lifts. These are very difficult, but an amazing activity. We're just going to stay in that 90-90 position. We're going to hold one knee down and pick our heel up off the ground. Once again, challenging that hip strength and mobility. It's an amazing, amazing exercise and also challenging. We're going for 10 reps on each side. Typically, mobility we do twice a week. These are some Cossack hip openers. All we're doing is planting our feet on the ground and shifting our weight back and forth the best we can and keeping our feet on the ground, really challenging our hip and ankle mobility. We also want to do this with weight. One of the best ways we can do movement is with weight and through our full range of motion. That'll add strength through the entire motion instead of just doing a static stretch. This is the last one I've got for you. Let me know if you've got any questions at all, or if you want to see some more hip strength and flexibility exercises. Thank you for watching and supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Once again, if you're liking what I'm doing, hit the subscribe button. And if you guys keep watching them, I'll keep making them. Until next time, peace.